All right, everybody, welcome into By the Minute. This is the first installment in By the Minute, and It's Just Money podcast recording and things like that. So what we have here is Jacob Schaefer here and Jordan Pierce. We're going to recap some week one football. Starting off, Schaefer, let me get your least surprising thing that happened this past weekend.
I mean, I think it's obvious to everybody. I don't know about you, but Alabama is Alabama.
If there was any questions, they're gone.
Like they're gone. It seems like they fucking do this every year. And I don't remember all the games that they always play, but they're always signing up for these big games. First game of the year, neutral site game. I remember Michigan coming to mind. I remember them absolutely piss pounding Michigan probably 5 years ago. And I'm sure they've done more. I just can't think of it on the top of my head. But yeah, this is not surprising at all. I don't think it's a detriment to Miami, but they got to figure it out quick because they got.
I think it's a little bit. You're a little concerned about Miami now.
You are, but it's more so. And Alabama didn't surprise anybody.
No, not at all. I don't think anybody was that surprised considering the spread was at 19 and like they just controlled the whole thing. Miami never had a chance, nothing like that. So. With least surprising, let's go to the other side. Let's talk most surprising thing that happened this weekend. I'm going to start off with Washington taking a loss to Montana. The Grizz go into Seattle, win against Washington and a team that a lot of people were liking, including Phil Steele and his things that I had talked about earlier in the year as a team that could win the Pac-12 North and challenge USC. So that's what I was thinking for most surprising. Schaefer, well, on your end, what are you thinking?
This is kind of the most surprising, not the way the game kind of played out, because I think everybody saw this game coming. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the offenses from Georgia and Clemson. We know what those defenses are going to bring this year. We knew coming into that it was going to be a low-scoring game. But yeah. One offensive touchdown was scored.
To me, what's interesting, and I'm going to kind of hit on both points you just said, if you don't watch FCS football and pay attention, you don't know the style that Montana plays. And they do play that pro style type offense and things like that, slow the game down. But Washington's done the same thing for a long time. So low scoring was not surprising. The loss, of course, was. But on your end, is Penn State, Wisconsin ugly football? But when Georgia and bigger name like Clemson, is that ugly football and ugly football?
No, I actually agreed. I'm not a Big Ten guy, but I agree. It's kind of the same standard. I think that both of those defenses at Penn State
got to hold them to the same standard, right? Like if we talk about defense, but when it's time, it's just, crap on the Big Ten and every offense they've ever had. And it's like, okay, well, you got to give them a nod too. Like they both did the same thing. So I'm just like sitting back, like, come on, like as a Big Ten guy.
Okay, answer me this then. So we talked about, you were a little skeptical about JT Daniels. I personally was skeptical about DJ. I'm going to try to get it right. Uangale. Yeah. I think, yes, Daniels didn't play great, but I think the offensive line for Clemson is very concerning. I don't think they're going to be able to protect him as well as if they want to be the playoff team and they want to be the Clemson that everybody expects them to be. That's an offensive line that's going to get their ass kicked against Alabama.
That's an offensive line that had returned a lot too. It wasn't like they were putting so many new pieces within that. So there was pieces there already set. You'd think they'd have a little bit like the chemistry and the ability to learn.
And that was the concern last year's. Like they couldn't block for ETN running the football.
And they couldn't run the ball.
They block for him.
He's just running for his life. The guy, at some point, you got to be. Yeah, he didn't look impressive, but he had nothing to help him either. So it wasn't any time for him to settle into his role on that day. And it was a great game to watch, but it just needs to go both ways. We're going great defenses here, bad offenses there. You got to, kind of go that fashion. So honestly, that was probably the most surprising. I'd agree with you on that. And that over-under was at 50. So people had expected some points, maybe not a ton, maybe like a 24-20 kind of game, kind of sitting under on that.
Here's a question for you though. After week one, and I'm a big don't sell yourself after week one type of thing, but was it just me or is even Alabama wise? I think the playoff or the championship's up for grabs right now. There wasn't a team that I know Alabama steamrolled Miami, but Alabama will be tested this year.
Yeah,
I don't think they're head and shoulders the favorite. I don't think anybody is.
No. I do think Alabama is really good. And I do think week one they are above everybody else, and that's not surprising. But I don't know. again, that's something we'll see, like you just said, as the year goes on, how close do people get to actually being like Alabama? Or does Alabama take a step back, or do you see them against better competition, and do they kind of take a step back with still a young quarterback? And he did look impressive. You can't say that Bryce Young didn't look impressive, but
Yep.
it's game one in a situation where Miami knew they weren't going to, people knew Miami wasn't going to play that much defense. So I think, yeah, it's wide open. I think those last 3 playoff spots are wide open. So that'll be very interesting to see. Onto something else that was kind of interesting. You're not fighting for, with these teams, a playoff spot, but like, what point is it okay to rush the field? You had Virginia Tech do it. You had Kansas do it.
I wanted to get to Kansas.
And Charlotte as well. So
did they really? Okay, I did not see Charlotte. Yeah. Wasn't that that was a home game for them? I thought that was played.
Charlotte beat Duke at home. I will give them a little bit of love, but that Charlotte team was picked to do a lot of nice things last couple of years. Duke's not very good.
Duke is terrible.
Yes.
So that they have no excuse for that.
Kansas was more of a joke. I get it. You know what? Kansas, go do whatever you want. That fan base, go do whatever you want. I don't care what you do. I think people being like, oh, this is where we're at, is Kansas football. People rush the field after we beat South Dakota. I go, that is where you at.
Yeah.
It happened.
Let's just say, let's say this. Yeah. One of the happier, I was happy for Kansas this week. Yeah, I know they were 15-point favorites, whatever. But just, I'm a big Lance Leipold guy. I was happy for him. That's a freshman quarterback going into there. Normally, Kansas folds in a situation like that where they're getting pushed around by even a lesser team, and they stuck to it. They go down last possession on 1 minute left. They score 677 days. That's a long fucking time. That is a long time.
Incredible.
I'm excited for them to play Duke personally, but after that, it's going to be dark the rest of the year. So I was happy for them.
Virginia Tech, on the other hand, beats North Carolina at home in another game that me and you had talked about. Another quarterback that didn't look very impressive. Then again, Sam Howell was also running for his life most of that.
He has no help. And he had zero help.
He's got 5 starters back on his offensive line, and you would have thought there were 5 true freshmen going up against, Virginia Tech's front 7. So much pressure on them. Are you okay with that storming to the field?
I think it was more or less like Virginia Tech thinks they're finally back. I think that is what they think. I don't think they think.
What is Virginia Tech's back though? Like what?
No, they're not. I don't think they are.
But I'm saying, what is them being back? Like in Texas, them being back is top 5 rankings. Like Virginia Tech's back.
Coming into Blacksburg is terrifying. I think that should be kind of them being back. It was a terrifying spot for North Carolina. People saw this coming. I don't think people saw this offense being that bad for North Carolina. I'm not too impressed with Virginia Tech. I don't think they're going to win any more than 7 games. It was a great win for them, but they're not back. I'm just that down on North Carolina.
Braxton Burmeister looked solid. They didn't look great. He made the plays he needed to make. That's kind of all you can say about that football game. It was enjoyable to watch on a Friday night, but it wasn't what people thought. Again, it could have been one of those.
It wasn't enjoyable if you had North Carolina's money line like I did halfway through the third quarter.
I mean, we did that last year with Florida State too.
Yeah.
But
that Florida State team this is a bowl game team out of Virginia Tech. I think the team's going to
win 8 games this year.
Yeah. I think that was a much worse loss last year. I just think that North Carolina is not going to be the team people expected them to be. I know, like I said, don't overreact to week 1, but that's a team that they don't have weapons. And Sam Howell looks helpless out there. You cannot be throwing that football at the end. I know me and you talked about it. He tried to not take the sack, but you have 3 timeouts. You just take the sack there. It does not matter. You're in 4-down territory.
Yeah, he got to a point where he really felt like he had to do it by himself, and I think that's what happened. I think the game sped up on him, and which is not what we've seen from him in his career. Like, he's been very, very good. That's the first game you've been like, wow, Sam Howell, what just happened to you? So
I think we're going to see more of it.
Now we're recapping that game a little bit. Let's move on to the Thursday night game that we had watched, Minnesota, Ohio State. What do we think about that one? I think my first take is Ohio State's defense is still Ohio State's defense. It's not that solid. The front 7 were supposed to be a run-stopping team. They go up over 100 yards to Mohamed Ibrahim in the first half. So I think that's a point to pay attention to when you're talking Ohio State. They didn't impress me a ton. They did everything you thought they would. But Minnesota looked good. But Minnesota good when they had Ibrahim, which is super
that's what I was
tough.
gonna say.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I was taking away from that game before the injury was that Minnesota's going to be a scary team in the West to upset and ruin a lot of people's seasons. But now with Ibrahim
No,
out,
I don't like. Yeah,
I don't know.
him.
Did they ever say what did he actually tear his?
Yeah, officially done. Season-ending.
That sucks.
Season-ending injury and surgery was put out today. I saw it by PFF. So that's super tough because I like, as you know, I picked him to be Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, and it looked very promising for the 3 quarters he was in the football game. Over 100 at halftime, like we were talking about. Guy looked super impressive.
And that's a good defensive line out of Ohio State. Yeah. Like the defense isn't great overall, but that's a good defensive line.
Their front seven is supposed to be solid. We knew the DBs had issues. Front seven is supposed to be solid. Not necessarily what we saw in that game. I think another thing with that, CJ Stroud looked good, but he wasn't impressive. I think you saw him try to get. Yeah, he got solid as it went. Oh, Chris Olave made a play where I was like, "You're joking, right?" Like, just
so fast.
Incredible. It just so smooth with everything he does. It looks so natural for him to be an athlete like that. And now he's going to be looking at as like, oh, is he Devontae Smith from last year, or is he Chris Olave this year, kind of thing. So that's going to be interesting to see. Another game that was Thursday night, Boise State UCF. What did you think about that one?
I mean, I was kind of bragging about it because I'm high on Boise State. They kind of bit me in the ass. What a start. Obviously, it's a weird game with the lightning delay and all of that. Bachmeier looks good. I think that this is the front runner of the Mountain West. I don't think there's going to be a team. I mean, there's some good teams in the Mountain West, but I think even after this loss, they're the front runner. Clearly, a solid team. We kind of knew. We talked about it. UCF's going to be a dangerous team. Dylan Gabriel's a good quarterback. They wouldn't have dug themselves in a situation if he doesn't throw that stupid pass on the first possession and it leads to a pick six.
Yeah, very bad ball. He threw it to the corner of the end zone trying to get it over top of a defender, ended up hitting straight in the chest. That goes 100 yards the other way. Yeah. Boise State gets up early. Yes, Hank Bachmeier looked good again. We knew that he was solid. What we do also know is it's another UCF team with an incredible offense and not a lot of defense.
Yeah. I thought the defense, I mean, they stood their ground. They gave their offense time to come back, and
they made plays when they needed to.
Yeah,
but they weren't standout like we'd seen defenses. And you looked at Cincinnati's defense this weekend, or you looked at Penn State's or Wisconsin's, or you go look at, obviously they're not at Georgia or Clemson, but teams like that really showed up and played great defense. So I wasn't that shocked. I was shocked that they came back and won that game. Wasn't shocked that the defense was what it was.
They're still a good football team, and I think they're a clear number 2 in that conference. I don't think anybody else is touching.
Would you say that Tulane gained any respect with this weekend, or is that a little overreaction to week 1 in the situation that it was?
I think Tulane's a good football team, but that definitely an overreaction. I think Oklahoma kind of got really lackadaisical in the second half. They steamrolled them in the first half. I know that there was a lot of distractions with the hurricane and things like that, and them having to switch back to Norman. But I mean, Oklahoma was head and shoulders better, and they just kind of gave it up. And Oklahoma tends to do that. They always do that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game later as well. We were just kind of curious on who'd be, American runner-up. We're thinking Cincinnati 1 or SMU, Tulane, UCF teams like that.
Not Tulsa. Holy shit, not Tulsa.
Not Tulsa. That's what we were going for. So next game, moving on, we're going to go to Michigan State Northwestern. Now I will sit here.
I was going to say, you can sit here and talk about that. That was your game.
I will sit here on this perch and I will say I was wrong. I misunderstood what this Northwestern team was going to be this year. I'm still not sold on Michigan State. I picked Northwestern to win that game. I thought they'd cover. Hunter Johnson doesn't look solid. The defense didn't look like anything like it had the year before.
They're going to win 4 games?
Yes, they'll win.
Sorry to cut you off. Do you think they're going to win 4?
They won't win 7 if they look like that.
Oh, God. I wasn't going to pick them to win 6.
I mean, I will stand on this tree, and I will tell you I was wrong. I was wrong. And as I fly these colors, I will tell you I'm wrong. And it's okay that they're bad, but just in that fact, I would have been okay with them beating Michigan State. Honestly, Michigan State, did they look good, or did Northwestern look that bad? I think there's a little bit of both. But then again, I'm not sold on what Michigan State's got going in East Lansing. Another weird game, Big Ten game during the weekday. So I mean, just what do you think for Michigan State and Mel Tucker? Do you think Mel Tucker is going to build something in his second year?
No, I don't. I don't think that they have the guys to do it. Like you said, it's still basically the same roster as last year. Northwestern is just going to have one of those years. You know, we see it every time with Pat Fitzgerald coming off of a sleeper season. Now they just do this. They're the most bipolar team in college football, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and Pat Fitzgerald, I don't dislike the guy. I like the guy, respect the guy a lot. But to me, that's your alma mater. That's like his dream job. If he wanted another job, he could be gone in a second, and everybody in the country knows that. If I'm him, I've done everything I can with this program. I've hit my ceiling. Let's go.
I think, and I think that's what Northwestern fans are like. You know, they know that this is going to be their bad year, but then they're like, we got Patty around. You know, we're going to be good again in a couple of years.
They'll be sitting around in 2022 or 2023, like knocking on Big Ten West championship doors. So, going back to Oklahoma Tulane, is the defense too overhyped in Norman? Did we overhype that? Are we overreacting? What is going on?
I hope so. I would really hope so for my sake. I don't know. I'm not gonna. That was one of the games I'm not overreacting on in week one. I'm really not. So Tulane is absolutely no slouch of a football team.
No,
very respectable.
They're a respectable G5 team.
The thing with me is not all defense, it's offense, and it's Spencer Rattler, because I was the one that tried to defend him.
I'm just saying I haven't jumped on the boat. I'm not on there.
He's no Baker. He's no Kyler Murray. He just makes bad plays. He's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. And 90% of the teams would take him this year. But he's just not one of those Lincoln Riley stud first pick in the draft QBs. Could he be enough to get him back to the playoff? Absolutely. But he's also inconsistent enough for a Iowa State team to come in Norman and beat him. So 100%. I'm not too high on him right now.
And so I was never really, I thought Rattler was solid. I thought he was good. I was never all over or all about his hype and all over that kind of thing. So I wasn't surprised to see what I saw. He didn't look bad. He didn't look great. He kind of looked right in that middle ground. He looked like a Jalen Hurts almost at Oklahoma. Yep. It was like you're just kind of doing what you need to do. The offense looked fine. The issue became, can the defense do what they're supposed to do with all the transfers coming in? And they had all these new pieces, and it was supposed to be the best defense of Lincoln Riley's era or Oklahoma's era in a long time. So surprising to see. Again, I think there was a lot of different outside factors that played into that, like we were talking about. Respect to Oklahoma putting the Tulane Green Wave on the field. That was a really cool gesture. Do you believe in moral victories or moral losses or anything like that? Like, do you think that's a moral victory for Tulane to go in there?
I think for small schools, there are moral victories. Yep. I think for teams that have high expectations and play tough first games, I think that there are moral victories. But yes and no. It kind of depends on the team and the situation. I don't think teams like Alabama or Clemson ever have moral victories, but it's for those teams like Tulane, it's a really good start to go into Norman and compete like they did, especially in a conference where they could take that number 2 spot.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little more about this kind of a little bit later, but wins where you look like you should have lost. How does a team react to that? How does a team go through that? Because at the end of the day, you got the win no matter how bad you looked.
Yep.
It's just one of those things where you probably don't feel as an Oklahoma fan that you won that game. I mean, Tulane was a yard short of getting the first down and being inside the 40-yard line with a chance to win that football game. So it just felt like you come off that field, you win. It's a sigh of relief. Now let's step back and see what happened, because I think, and we'll get to it, obviously, with a couple of teams around the country. And we'll explain that. We'll explain that because I feel like a lot of people needed a little explaining on what happened in Ames.
I want to switch to the rivalry, same team, Texas. Yep. I don't want people to overreact on Texas. I preached for 4 weeks, that this was going to happen. I was repeatedly saying that Louisiana loss or win in Ames last year was a fluke with a lot of errors in it, and that this Texas team would come out hot, fired up with a new coach. They're a good football team. They prove that they are. I still think Louisiana is a good football team as well. But this is Texas. They should win that football game, controlling like they did. They knew that they were going to respect Louisiana. This doesn't set the tone for their season. I think that they could be a good team, but let's give them a couple weeks before we start overreacting to Texas.
So we talked about a lot about the Sun Belt and how we think that conference is going to be very solid. Levi Lewis will put up 282 yards to the air, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He was good. The problem became.
I'm telling you, man. They're going to miss those two. They're going to miss Mitchell. They're going to miss Ragas really bad. And I don't think Levi Lewis is the guy to make up for it. I just don't.
So, and then on the other side, Hudson Card with his first start in Austin goes for 224 and 2 tutties. He looked solid. I think people are happy with what they saw from him. I think they're happy that Sark came in and got him a win and cover and things like that. So, again, like you said, Texas, we've just got to see what happens. They go to Fayetteville next week. Arkansas didn't look very good against Rice. Now let's give them a second as well, because I think that's another spot where Arkansas is trying to take a step forward. Let's not overreact to a close game where they kind of pulled away at the end. So on to another game. I think we've already touched on this a little bit. Penn State, Wisconsin. This was the big noon kickoff on Fox.
Damn it. I know he's not with us, but my Nittany Lions. I've been saying this for weeks.
I know. I mean, the kid, I get it. And he said maybe Penn State's taking a dip. And I was just not on that train because I simply thought that last year was an anomaly. And they had won 9 games or 10 games the years prior. So I think going into that game, I was expecting exactly what I got, to be honest with you. And I stayed away from the line just because I could see both sides happening. And so I was like, I'll just stay away and watch this game. Very happy I did that. Graham Mertz, not impressive, not sold on him. I don't know.
It's Jack Cohn.
Yeah.
We can get to that, but they missed Jack Cohn.
That's another thing. Both defenses are legit. We know that. We know Wisconsin's going to have a good one. We didn't know how good Penn State's would be. I think they answered the bell on that. Graham Mertz just threw a lot of balls. You're like, what is going on?
Yep.
Needs to just be slowed down. I think Penn State is obviously the pick in the East to challenge Ohio State and Wisconsin.
And I think they legitimately can.
I think if they can get CJ Stroud uncomfortable and make the offense go a little bit more. And we've seen Ohio State having issues on the ground and defending things through the air, especially. Jahan Dotson, at one point, Penn State said, okay, just get open. Because they hadn't given him the ball. He hadn't found him in many routes. They said, just get open. They hit him for 2 or 3 big plays. The kid's electric. He's absolutely one of the best receivers in the country. It's a shame that only him or Olave is going to have to win Big Ten Player of the Year, because those guys could fight anybody in the country for best receiver. And that's not even overestimating anything. So on to a little bit of Clemson, Georgia. We'll do a little Iowa State talk at the end just real quickly. Clemson, Georgia. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Terrifying defenses. I think anybody will struggle against. I think we know that quick. And DJ and JT both struggle. Do you think it was more of the defenses giving them issues, or do you think it was a little bit of kind of first big spotlights for both of them?
It's a tough spot for both quarterbacks because that's the best defense. Well, I mean, outside of what they're going to face in the college football playoff or the SEC championship, but those are going to be the best defenses they see all year. That's a tough. Everybody knows how tough the first game of the season can be getting comfortable.
Yeah.
It just became that much tougher with those elite defensive lines. I don't think it's something to overreact, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And I just think that think that the whole college football world in general, nobody's got that dude under center this year.
We talked about that. And to give a little background to everybody, me and Schaefer were kind of talking about the fact that we didn't think there was one quarterback out there that is head over heels better than everybody else in the country. You're like, wow. Now you can give me the Carson Strong talk in Nevada. I want to see that at a different scale.
I love that win this weekend for him.
I think there's usually in the last couple of years, you've had quarterbacks like in the wow factor. Not this year. It hasn't seemed like that. Again, week 1, we're not trying to, blow this thing up. We're just trying to take a week 1 evaluation of everything. Final game, actually second to last final game. Do you have one more point?
I was going to, I don't know if we have the same final game, but can we talk about the most exciting game this weekend, I think? And that was last night.
Yeah, I was going to talk about UCLA, LSU.
Okay.
So UCLA, LSU, just really quickly, LSU, I don't think it's gotten any better. Hunter Johnson does not look good. Chip Kelly back, or is he just getting everything ready? Like, has he been building up for this year in UCLA, or?
I think it's a good football team, but I'm going to be on the hot seat. We're forgetting about the other team across town who had a really, really good game against a good football team, and I don't think they're the best team in LA right now.
They showed up and they looked like USC was supposed to. USC was supposed to. I'm not a USC guy. I'm very vocal about how I feel about that school, but they looked like they were supposed to in everybody's eyes. So hats off to them. I think UCLA will be there in the end to fight with a lot of teams. I don't think LSU is going to be the team that people wanted them to be. I think it really hurts when you lose Miles Brennan and you have to put in Hunter Johnson.
I think that was more clear than we expected.
Yep. And so we'll talk about that. And now let's talk about Notre Dame, Florida State.
Was that your favorite game to watch this weekend? That was a great football game.
No.
You can't say Iowa.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll take that one then. Yeah. We'll take that. It
was a great football game. I want to go first, particularly because I've been high on Jack Cohn going into this season. He looked like an NFL quarterback.
He looked very impressive, and I think a lot of people in Wisconsin are starting to think back and be like, why can we never get a passing game going? I mean, the guy was just plugged into an offense and said, go, like, drive the Ferrari, just don't crash it kind of thing, and he did that.
And you know what, though? That Florida State team, they're solid. That's a good defensive line. That's a good defense.
It's a very solid team.
Good transfers.
When you talk Florida State right now, though, it now has become, do we let Mackenzie Milton drive the train, or do we, keep where we were?
I think you gotta go like high school 2-quarterback system the next game. I think that Travis made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Great story. It was awesome, but Milton made like 1 or 2 throws. It wasn't like he was just head and shoulders the guy, and he's got to get put into a real game situation, not being down 18 in a Notre Dame defense that was playing conservative.
Yeah, Travis did throw 3 interceptions, so that's not what you wanted to see out of them. A couple of them were just great plays by Notre Dame secondary, but exciting game, great game. I do not like the take that they say that they froze their own kicker. I think that's BS. I think if you have the opportunity to move your team up
37-yarder or a 50-yarder, are you kidding me? There's no debate there.
Because if he would have, listen to me, if he would have missed that kick and then they'd have challenged it and then he made the shorter one, people would have been like, so smart, so headsy. Or if he would have made it and then done it and then made it, nobody would have said anything.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you can make a 50-yarder, you could make a 37-yarder or whatever it was. That's my 2 cents worth. I think it's BS to say you ice your own kicker. Beyond me to think that. Again, people entitled to their opinion. I think that's just the wrong opinion.
my last takeaway of that game is that Florida State figures out their quarterback situation. Just both of those teams are going to be a lot better than people expected this year.
Oh, for sure. Now let's talk about, we're going to do a little bit of big losses. I think Washington's loss, obviously, to Montana is a tough look to see when you're battling for the Pac-12 North early in the year again. I think they'll be able to reset their feet and kind of go forward. Illinois, did we know it was coming or did we know it was coming? I think we were both just a little too good to be true. Let's not touch that right now. UTSA goes into Champaign, beats Illinois and Brett Bielema's second game at the helm. And then Georgia Tech loses to Northern Illinois. I don't know what happened in Atlanta. But that is not what I wanted to see. I thought Georgia Tech could handle the worst team in the MAC. Apparently not. So that's just a very tough thing to say out of them.
Going on losses, I'm just going to be in general and broad. The ACC. ACC took a tough weekend, and we're gonna see if Louisville can pick up some of the slack tonight. But I don't think they will.
As we're recording this, we still have Ole Miss and Louisville. We do know Lane Kiffin's not coaching. That line has dropped from 10 to around 8.5 in some spots. And what do you think about that game? What do you kind of, before, obviously we're not recapping it, but what do you kind of think? What are you looking for in that game?
I just think Ole Miss is going to be too much offensively, and I hope Lane Kiffin being out is not going to be the big difference.
I just think Matt Corral is going to be too much for that Louisville team. I don't think Louisville has enough back on offense to help Malik Cunningham in any fashion. They lost a lot of production. So an over at 74 right now is not crazy to think, but at the same time, I just think there's too much on the other side in Oxford. So wrapping up a little bit, let's do the talk.
It's our podcast. It's our thing.
Let's do the talk.
Yep.
Iowa.
I have to congratulate you on Happy Hate Week. Happy Hate Week to everybody out there.
Happy Hate Week. I'm waving to all you Iowa State fans. I want everybody to know this is the week that I shut my mouth. I don't say a word. I don't do anything, but I just sit there.
That's on this week's episode. We will have good discussion.
Yeah, we're going to discuss it. I will not get in a fight about it. I will have nothing to say but positive things because now let's talk about Iowa State first. Now, obviously, Iowa State brought in UNI. Everybody's probably looking at UNI as a team that only won 3 or 4 games in the spring. Into Ames, close football game. That line was at 31, and me and you said that's a lot of points. But
literally robbery.
In history, let me give you a little rundown for everybody listening. UNI has always will give Iowa and Iowa State problems. They know how to play them. Mark Farley's been there a long time. They can scheme them. They can do everything here, there. Iowa's had to block 2 field goals at the end of a game to beat them. Iowa State's had to go into double overtime with them. I don't think that's to overreact to at all. I think people freaking out about that don't know the situation need to just take a step back.
I don't take anybody's opinion about Iowa State this weekend for seriously. They don't know
a lot anything. Of fans of your own say something too, like, wow.
I know. And they don't know anything about football. They're overreacting. This is Matt Campbell. This is Matt Campbell. This is what he does.
True fan recording.
They cannot they had no chance of scoring in that second half. And Matt knew that. If he didn't know that, he would have tried to go for it when we were inside the 10 with our last possession. If he was really that scared. He wasn't. He trusted our defense.
I think they knew.
We play too conservative. It's what we do, but he trusted his game plan, and it is what it is.
Going to be a solid FCS school. They'll win some games. They'll probably end up ranked. Usually they're in the top 5 of the FCS. I think they'll bounce back. I think last year's a fluke for them in the spring, or this year, I guess. I mean, do you call it last year? Not important, but let's go to Iowa City. Indiana comes into Iowa City. Iowa shows up quickly. Big run by Tyler Goodson, then a pick 6 by Riley Moss. And by then you could kind of smell everything, cooking. It was over quick for Indiana. Penix didn't look solid. The DBs looked good in Iowa City. Petrus didn't blow me away. He kind of just let the game do what it wanted. It laid out to a point where he just had to make the small plays. He did have a couple spots where you're like, that's a good throw out of a guy you need to see in this offense. But I'm just curious, out of an outsider's perspective, as you and Ames, what did you think about that situation, how that all played out?
I don't want to take away the win. That's a great win for Iowa, but I don't want to take it away from them. But it's more or less, we've been talking about this. Mm-hmm. Indiana is a fluke. That team will struggle to win 7, 8 games, will be a great season for them. I'm sorry. I like Tom Allen. Michael Penix is a good quarterback. But they caught a lot of weird teams and a lot of weird times last year.
Exactly.
That's what it's going to be. It was a good first game for Iowa to come out and beat a team like that, but Indiana's going to struggle this year. That's just all I got to say about it.
Yeah, and I think it's both sides. Don't overreact to Iowa being super good week 1. Don't overreact to Iowa State not being, what people thought they were week 1, because at the end of the day, nothing matters. And I'm not going to say Iowa State was looking forward to Iowa coming in next week, because they know that they shouldn't. They probably would have lost if that was the case. Obviously, Iowa wasn't looking forward to Iowa State. I think Kirk Ferentz needs to find a way to settle in Petrus more. They're going to have to get the offensive line a little bit better. They did struggle to run the ball at times. If it wasn't for Goodson making some big plays, I think that game would have been much closer. Obviously, 2 pick 6s really help, and getting 3 total. Probably should have had 5 or 6 if we're being honest.
That was the thing that took away from both games, is Iowa had executed on the big plays where Iowa State didn't.
Yeah, that's the other way around. Like, usually we're just chopping wood in Iowa City, and it's Iowa State can hit a big one when they need to. Breece Hall didn't get the running game going, but I don't think that'll be, I think the big matchup.
If I had one takeaway, it's, I know what the offensive line can be, but it was a little concerning. I know UNI's defense is good, but we're in for it next week.
Yeah. We were also concerned a little bit in the offensive line looked good, but at times we're used to seeing Iowa, run the zone blocking scheme and have guys 3 or 4 yards downfield moving the line of scrimmage. It didn't happen as much. But things happen. It doesn't matter anymore. We go into Ames. Iowa will go to play Iowa State. College game day now coming in. I think that'll be obviously the game of the century, or whatever they're calling it now.
Let me just end it this way. I think this is almost a redo from 2 years ago. To be completely honest, it's like God giving us a redo.
It's literally setting up
of Iowa to show it.
It's setting up to be the perfect day in Ames for, like, just an Iowan. And I get, and people, if they want to do like, oh, well, it's in Ames 2 years in a row. Well, it's because Iowa's in Ames. If it was in Iowa City, it'd be the same thing. I think this game will be incredible. I think it'll be awesome. 2:30 kick. You get Herbie on the call. Great stuff for the state of Iowa. I'd like to congratulate you because a couple years ago, we did not think we'd be in this situation with both these programs where they are.
I think they're both better than what they were 2 years ago. And I think it's even the best part about it is that the transition into the ABC Kirk Herbstreit called game. What was it?
Awesome. We had Fox.
On Fox, and the 2 rain delays. It just kind of ruined the game. And then
it's going to get a lot of love. It's going to get a lot of love.
Game could get some amazing ratings. Could put the state on the map. I'm really
so happy for the state of Iowa. So happy for all the diehards out there that have been waiting for this on both sides. Everybody that's just kind of getting into the football thing for Iowa or Iowa State, and you're tailgating, having a good time. Take it in, look around. This is what's going on. So happy for the state. But don't let the people that are just kind of showing up now get to you under your skin. Let them enjoy it too. We're the same way.
Fans ruin it for you. There's going to be dumb. There's going to be people shoving it in either whoever wins his face, and they're going to do nothing about their own football team. And it's just everybody else, they know what it is.
Don't be the stubborn fan that, and me and Schaefer are 100% guilty of this. Don't be the stubborn fan that's like, you didn't deserve this win. I deserve this win. Or like, just they don't know everything about the sport of the team. Well, some people don't put their whole thing into it. We care a little bit more. Obviously, but it's going to be awesome. Can't wait to preview it later. And the It's Just Money podcast that'll come out later this week. Any final thoughts, Schaefer? Anything that you need, get off your chest?
No, it was a great first week of games. That was a lot of fun. I'm kind of glad there's no games really going on next week because everybody can focus in on the big game. But no, it was a good week for a podcast as far as records concerned. And just be on the lookout for this week's episode. It's going to be a fun one.
Yep. This week's episode, most likely recording a Wednesday night, dropping Thursday. Plenty of games this weekend. Obviously, the big one will be in Ames College game day. Very excited for the situation. You couldn't get a ticket for less than $300 if you tried. Well, that's it from me. Happy to have Schaefer here. We'll have content later in the week. We'll discuss more Iowa State. There'll be no hate talk from me towards him. I don't expect it out of him, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to episode 1 of By the Minute, and we will see you next week.